God is good, and each day that passes brings us a day closer to Pantheon Rise of the Fall launching so that we can all play it in all of its glory. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, especially if you're interested in Pantheon related content, as that's mainly what we cover here at the Nathan Napalm channel. Real quick guys, today I wanted to talk about some high level perks. In other words, things we can expect from Pantheon at high level, things we can look forward to, and all the goodies that come along with making it to max level. And I'm not talking about raid type things and activities like that. Of course, you'll have that kind of thing, but I want to get more specific, things that are specific to the old school MMO or to Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. And I got a couple of interviews and times things were brought up that I think are relevant to the topic. The first thing I want to bring up or talk about is something that during the live stream with the Hive leader that was mentioned during that live stream, which is, you know, anybody that played Everquest at all, even for a short period of time, probably got this experience, which is when you're hanging out in a low-level area or what have you, and a high level or a max level is hanging out there as well for various reasons, and sometimes they're there just to buff the low level. So just to give the newbies some buffs, which makes you really overpowered and makes you be able to continue leveling without having to rest as often, maybe take on higher conning mobs and things like that. And if you experience that in EverQuest, then you know exactly how awesome it is and how much potential it gives you as a low level, and you know just how much more amazing it makes that high level seem. And the cool thing about games like EverQuest is it was very common that that's just what you did. You know, you go for a few hours and you just hang out in an area where you knew there was a lot of low level characters, whether it be right outside of a dungeon or right at the entrance of the dungeon. You help them out, you give them some reses, you know, you throw them some buffs, and you just kind of look out for them and make sure that everybody's having a good time. And it's just something you like to do. I mean, it's an interesting concept when you compare that to how you definitely wouldn't even consider that in a newer school MMO, but that's because of the length of time that it takes and just the development in your you know, your steadfast kind of determination into the world that you've leveled up in this digital world. So it's just a totally different thing when you compare it with newer MMOs. So I think it's very important to talk about, and it was mentioned in that. So I want to play that clip real quick for you.
Small question on that. I remember back in, you know, like the original EverQuest, if you were a low level hanging out and somebody like in Blackborough or something, and somebody comes by and gives you a buff who's, you know, level 50, and they come by and give you a buff, is that going to apply here as well, where like you all of a sudden you're super OP because they gave you a level 50 buff?
Well, yeah, that would apply in the sense that we want to have that kind of higher level to lower level interaction as well. I mean, what do we love about being high level, right? We love really cool gear, and we love walking around in really cool gear. We love having awesome abilities, and we love showing off those abilities. And sometimes that's, you know, doing our thing in combat, but sometimes that's going to a lower level area or a city and helping other players, interacting with other players that way. So absolutely, we want to foster that. You know, we want to keep an eye on that and don't want that to run rampant. But that's definitely something that we like.
So of course in that conversation he also mentioned what we all love, which is wearing really cool gear, kind of flashing around, walking around like, yeah, the sweet helmet I got, you know, and this kind of thing. So that's very important too. As a matter of fact, to some people, to a large majority of people, that's their favorite thing about MMOs is getting the cool stuff, getting the cool gear, not just for the statistical value that it brings to their character and into their specific role that they play, but also actually just showing it off, like wearing it and knowing how rare it is. And that is something that is going to be very different in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. I feel like these days, for the most part, developers kind of want to throw the gear at you and make it easier to obtain, or at least they want to at least give you an option to get cool gear that is still comparable with the best in slot, and there'll be various avenues, easier ways to get it for people who don't raid or don't do the, you know, the hardest content in the game. The cool thing about Pantheon is these developers don't give a crap. You know, they don't care if you don't have the best in slot, because you're gonna have to earn it, right? It makes it more valuable. So they're not gonna sacrifice the fact of the entirety of the way that the development of this particular video game is going, as far as everything has value and everything has purpose, and it's hard to achieve different things. So they're more rare. The good gear is going to be more rare, which means it's more valuable. It's going to be harder to obtain. It's going to take more time, more investment into the game in order to get it, which means showing it off is even more satisfying, which makes the drive to try to get it that much higher. It adds another layer to the gameplay when you put this in there like that. So I know that we'll all get aggravated, including me. We'll want a specific drop, and we'll spend what we feel like is way too long trying to get it, or camping that spot, and we're going to get aggravated, and we're going to say, oh my gosh, and I wanted it to be difficult, but this is a little much. But at the end of the day, when you do finally give it, if you don't give up and you finally get that drop, it's worth it. It's more valuable. It means something. You're going to remember how much effort you put into it to get it. So I mean, it's totally worth it when things are more rare, and they should be. Very high statistical value or unique gear, should be hard to get, and it should last a long time. That's the other thing. You shouldn't be just getting drops left and right and replacing it immediately. No, when you get something, you have it for a long time. We all know back in Everquest, if you got a drop, you might get it, in your low 20s, and you might wear that all the way up into your 40s. Like you'd be wearing that piece of gear for a long time. It was actually a good piece of gear. It wasn't just some random drop that you got and you're like, cool, whatever, I'm gonna put it on, it's better than what I had, and you're knowing you're gonna replace it at any point, right? So that just makes the entire experience more satisfying and better, and it's something that can't be compared with in a common newer MMORPG. And something else I want to touch on, actually, in that realm of possibilities, is also the fact of, in a world being designed like Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is that the one zone or one dungeon or one area is kind of like Everquest, will have higher level mobs in it. So it's not just a dungeon designed for level 10 to level 18, and then that's it. There will be areas and pockets of it, or levels, or deeper in it, or what have you, with high level mobs in it, so that you're not just hanging out with low beasts, but there's a reason for higher levels to be there as well, to get that drop, for example, or whatever the situation may be. But they are designing the dungeons to basically have that in it. Like Black Rose Keep, they mentioned that there's some level 30 and 40 content, even though it's specifically actually probably for most areas, depending on what your race is and where you start at, but for most people it will be like their first dungeon or whatever, low teens kind of dungeon, but there'll also be 30s and 40s hanging out there. So that kind of forces an interaction that's really cool and not seen often these days. That kind of, the MMORPG genre kind of got away with from that really quick, to where they wanted people to only hang out with people in their level range, but that misses a very key component to the awesomeness of being a high level and being amidst and with the lower levels. It's good for them, and it's good for the high level, because you're there to help them out. It kind of puts you in predicaments, where the low levels need abilities that you have that no one in their level range has, to help them get out of bad situations, or to res them, or whatever situation is. And the game is being developed to cause this kind of interaction, so that you will be together with lower levels. And that's a really cool feature, I think. And it's a feature both for the low level and also for the high level to be like that. And it was talked about a little bit, it was touched upon in a stream with Co. So I want to play that clip right now.
Bad as people.
No, it's cool that you guys hit on that, because that was one of my favorite parts of EQ back in the day, is being able to kind of like seeing all the players together, not just this one-way direction from newbie zones to endgame content, where it was basically like a world that everyone could live in. You're in Oasis doing your thing. There's the highest level necro on your server, camp inspectors in the middle of the zone. You're leveling in at 14. That stuff was awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
and those are things that stick with you, man. I mean, you're giving testimony to that right now. I mean, you're recalling specific memories because they've imprinted so strongly how significant that was to you, to see that and want to get there. And that's such a beautiful thing that we're wanting to recapture for sure.
And there you have it, guys. This video was kind of just a breakdown of some really cool stuff that you can do as a high-level character in an old-school MMO or in Pantheon Rise of Fallen, which is being based on the premise of the old-school MMO genre. So it's very different, you know. It's interesting because no matter what topic that I decide to cover and talk about, it all comes back to the community. The community is the one driving this entire thing. You know, if you think back of any kind of very memorable moment you had in an old school MMO, I guarantee you that when you step back and look at it, it was because of the community. You know, the community's what caused that specific thing to happen, and the only thing that drove the community together to make this specific memory happen was the elements of the game, the way the game was built to drive community, to need other people. So you know, it ends up playing off in a beautiful way, and it's something that when you play a quasi multiplayer RPG type where you maybe just get to bring one friend or a couple of friends, something that, yeah, you make good memories and things like that, but when you add and you sprinkle in the randomness of several other 100 or 1,000 people and their personalities and their outlook on things, you get these really awesome memories, and that's what Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is all about. Well, guys, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so, especially if you enjoyed this video or if you're looking forward to Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, just want a little bit of talks and discussions about the game and things like that, then please join us, because that's what we do here. And guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave me comments down below on what you think, if you think there's some other perks, or if you enjoyed these, or you have some memories to share of things like this, or if you disagree, whatever it may be, at least leave your comments below and let's talk about it. And guys, thanks for joining me. God bless and happy gaming.